So it was kind of, a crazy scene in there. There were 20 minutes when I lost contact with my daughter, so I was a little frantic.
Yeah, Lizette, you and I have, all of us have, we've all seen these things play out in other places and never knowing it's going to impact our lives. Had you ever had this conversation with your daughter about these active shootings?
Yes, as a matter of fact, her biggest fear is a school shooting. She's always begging me to be homeschooled because of something like this. And oddly enough, I always tell her not to worry because we live, in what I thought was a secure neighborhood. But that just today goes to show you this can happen anywhere at any time. It's just very sad and unfortunate incident. So thankfully, the shooter has been caught. And
and Lizette, in fact, as you said that, the suspect has been caught. We're actually looking at live images now. WTVJ helicopter providing this image of the suspect now being wheeled from an ambulance into a hospital for some sort of examination or treatment. Again, we had seen him earlier when he had been taken into custody and handcuffed. He stood there. There appeared to be no urgency, no signs of injury. He was placed in a police car and then after several minutes brought back out here. It's unclear if he's having trouble standing there or what, but he was handed over to the paramedics and just taken to the hospital there, perhaps as a precaution. Really not clear, but it appears to be one suspect, and that one suspect now in custody and being treated at the hospital. Again, the Broward County Sheriff saying they have at least 14 victims. They've been transported to the Broward Health Medical Center and the Broward Health North Hospital.
This is why this happens. These kids go to school, they get picked on for years, and they get fed up. I'm telling you, that's a lot of what happens. The other reason is because people want to be known. They want attention. Sometimes it could be over a girl. Say some guy in school stole your girl. Another reason. This shit needs to stop. I believe in the Second Amendment 100%.
In the shooting, you see a number of police cars gathered there around the emergency room.
It's starting to get crazy, guys.
Let's go to NBC's Tom Costello now. It continues to gather more. Tom?
Well, I just was double-checking with our sources, and the FBI and the ATF also trying to work closely. They are on the scene now and working closely with local authorities, with the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department. This is a Broward County Sheriff's operation.
Broward County is where I grew up. So,
like this,
what school was this? Booker.
To assist. The numbers of injured and potentially deceased are concerning and not firmly nailed down yet. We're hoping for that information soon and waiting for that.
That's Davie Elementary. That looks like Davie Elementary. That's the elementary school I went to. Hold on.
At some of the worst cases of school shootings in America. And
now, if it's a high school, it's Stranahan because I was the only white kid there. And I'm not blaming it on a race because white kids are most of the time the ones that do the shooting. But when you have one white kid in a school that's, mostly blacks, and they get picked on.
We had a number of people there killed. A security guard, a teacher, and 5 students, and the gunman. And then in Columbine, 13 people killed at their high school, and then they killed themselves. And there have been so many others. In no way do we suggest that we're not remembering somebody because the school shootings and the numbers of fatalities don't pop up as the worst. And unfortunately, that is the environment in which we find ourselves now, where there are so many school shootings and so many victims over the past 10 years or 20 years. We start to forget some of them, and they are no less significant and no less traumatic for those families and for the individuals who survived. But yet that's the situation we find ourselves in at the moment. The superintendent of the school district, I would tell you, is suggesting a number of fatalities at the high school. We heard that as well from Senator Nelson, but the superintendent also now suggesting a number of fatalities, but we don't have the definitive number yet. And again, the suspect is in custody. I think that's what we're looking at there, Lester, is the ambulance. It looks to be backed up there to the hospital, and they may be treating that suspect. One of our producers suggested he may have had a leg injury. If we were watching the video of him at the police car, he may have at some point suffered a leg injury, and that may have been what they were treating him for in the ambulance and then taking him to a hospital. And indeed, he does look like he struggles to walk or to stand ever so slightly there, despite having handcuffs on. But I suspect we'll hear more from the Sheriff's Department on that throughout the course of the evening.
All right, Tom Costello, thanks very much. We have on the telephone now with us Jason Snight, a student at the Douglas School. Jason, thank you for joining us. First of all, can I assume you're calling us from a safe place right now?
Yes, I'm in a car.
I didn't go to Douglas. Douglas didn't exist when I was there in 93, 94, 95.
Can you explain where you were, what you saw, and what you heard?
Well, I was on the first floor of the building where the talk happened first.
That is the old Riverview Middle School. They turned it into a high school. I know right where that is. That was about 2 miles from where I grew up. I'm serious. That was Riverview. That's in Hollywood, Florida.
And our door was open, so
Broward County.
I went and closed it, and everybody went in the corner, and we turned off the lights and everything. We didn't know what was happening.
But
like, we didn't know if it was real or a drill or something, like with blanks. But yeah, we were like the closest room.
And what action? You say the door was closed. Did you guys then barricade in the school, or at some point did you make the decision to run for it?
The parents need to keep their guns locked up.
No, the door was open.
I have kids. I have one kid in my house.
Then, well, we
and
waited inside the
guns
room
all
until the police
have
came
trigger locks on them
and told us to evacuate.
They stay unloaded.
Did you recognize immediately the sound of gunshots?
I have one hidden loaded gun that nobody can reach or nobody knows where it's at.
And what were the emotions inside the room? You and the classmates and your teacher?
Well, we were all like freaking out, like our hearts were racing and stuff. We didn't know what was happening. We just heard the gunshots, so everybody ran to the corner. Our teacher was instructing us on what to do.
18 and older,
we closed the door and then we ran to the corner. We were all freaking out, like we weren't talking, we were being quiet, and we just went out of sight of the door.
And when you got out, what did the police have you do?
The police, they knocked on the door. We had some people saw that it was the police. We had to make sure before we opened it. They had us evacuate. They told us, drop your bags, just don't bring them. And we ran to the opposite side of the parking lot. So they told us to go there, and then we eventually crossed the street and went to the intersection that was near there.
Had your school or you been involved in an active shooter drill before?
All right, let's see what else we got.
I'm a freshman, so not that I know of. I don't think it had.
This guy was in the classroom, I believe. All right, let's see which one we got. It's playing audio.
All right, I'm told we have on the line now. I'm sorry, one more.
This seems to be
Christine Hanchowski, the mayor of Parkland.
It doesn't even cover the surface of what a lot of the students saw here today, things that no one should ever see, much less teenagers see inside of a place that they should feel safe. This happening here in Parkland. You're seeing they're trying to clear this area. You're seeing parents coming out, many of them without their child. This has been going on now several hours. Parents running to that area to find their loved one, and now they just want to be reunited with their child. They just want to hug their child. For the parents who are coming here and getting the worst possible news that a parent could ever get, that their child did not make it. Those parents are being escorted out of here as well. We have been told that 4 students were taken to Broward North, and 4 students were also taken to Broward Health Medical Center in Fort Lauderdale. But an absolute chaotic, horrific scene out here in Parkland when a gunman walked inside of that school and began shooting, taking lives. Superintendent Robert Runcie saying that there were multiple fatalities. We don't have any clear numbers, but you're seeing still the aftermath out here. People still trying to figure out where their child is, if they were taken to a nearby hotel, if they're still inside of the school being cleared out. But
a
a
lot of people think of Columbine, but they don't think of all the other school shootings that have happened.
To be leaving, getting ready to go home.
There have been so many.
Rushing
if
to
you
the
look
scene
up a list,
to try to
Google
figure out what was happening.
all school shootings since 1990. See what you find.
Well, luckily. So as you can see, parents still walking out, but this scene here has been closed off, so parents either with a student inside or on the phone that have some contact with their child allowed in to possibly find their child. But this is a plaza here. There's a Walmart inside of this plaza here, and many students, when everything happened, running to this plaza, many parents going around on the other side to pick up their child on this area too. But strong words from Superintendent Robert Runcie, saying today was he had such a high, giving us Teacher of the Year award, and then he began getting phone calls in regards to the shooting, and it was the absolute lowest point that anyone could possibly hear. So he had a high and low, the worst day in Broward.
We're interrupting WSVN's coverage of police news conferences beginning. Let's listen.
Remember, right now, it's a fluid scene right now. We have multiple SWAT teams clearing all the buildings. If anybody knows anything about Stoneman Douglas High School, it's one of the biggest schools in Broward County. It's huge. It's a huge campus. So we have multiple SWAT teams clearing every building to make sure that there are no other shooters. We have a shooter in custody. He was taken into custody, I believe, about an hour after he left Stoneman Douglas, after he committed this horrific, homicidal, detestable act. The FBI and our crime scene people will be processing this horrific scene as soon as the buildings are cleared. Right now, the buildings are not safe to be cleared. We're asking that you put out on the news ASAP that any parent who's looking for their child to please go immediately to the Marriott within the Heron Bay complex. Our deputies and other police officers are transporting these young students over to Heron Bay to be reunited with their parents. So that's where we want parents to go. I want to thank Mayor Beam, Commissioner Sharif.
I mean, the Las Vegas shooting was terrible.
The Broward Sheriff's Office,
but I have suspicions on that day.
Terrible time. Last thing I want to say is, this is a terrible day for Parkland, Broward County, the state of Florida, the United States.
And
my very own triplets went to that school and graduated from Stoneman Douglas. They played football and lacrosse at that school. So it's just catastrophic. There really are no words, and we will keep you updated. I have spoken to Governor Scott. He's out of state. He is on his way over here. I have spoken to President Trump, and he's offered the full power of the United States of America to help us get through this. Any questions? I can't hear you. He was found off campus. I don't exactly know where. I believe he was found in the city of Coral Springs by a Coconut Creek police officer. That's unconfirmed right now. There's so much information.
So this is in very south Broward County.
From what I understand, there was a time
close to Miami,
where he did attend the school. I don't know why he left. I don't know when he left. That is correct. He was not a current student. I wasn't there, but I was told that there was no confrontation. He was, can you hear me? Yeah. He was taken into arrest without incident. Yes.
Do you have anyone else in custody? Our understanding is just
one.
Okay, do you have an age on him?
I believe he's approximately 18 years old.
Okay, and then at least one dead?
Multiple,
so more than one.
And you said the school's not safe right now. There's still children inside. And what have you heard?
Well, I don't know. We believe at this point that all children that we know about are cleared and are outside the building. However, we don't know if there are injured people. We don't know if there are people hiding. We don't know. So we will not begin to release information or begin to open up the crime scene until the SWAT components say the school is safe and clear. When I hear all clear, we'll begin the next phase of this investigation.
Are teachers dead or only students?
I have no idea.
Heard of Mr. Beagle?
No.
Injuries, approximately how many?
Well, I don't know how many injuries there were, but we know 14 people were transported to area hospitals with varying degrees of wounds. What we'll do is we'll wait for the school to be cleared. We'll go on to the next phase. I know this is critically important to release information to Broward County, and we will keep you up to date. But for right now, there's no more information to impart with you. He was outside and inside at varying times. He certainly was inside. Thank you.
In terms of those dead, have their families been notified?
Scott Israel speaking live there. A little bit of new information. He says that it's a former student who knew the lay of the land there, that this former student, the gunman, was both inside and outside the school. Now, we don't know whether that means he shot at people inside and outside. But we know there are multiple fatalities. The sheriff repeating what we had been told earlier by the school superintendent and by Senator Bill Nelson. And just a horrible and tragic day in South Florida. He was found off campus, the suspect, and we saw that happen live here on Fox News through the facilities of WSVN 7 in South Florida. There are news stations joining us across America. We're live on Fox News Channel and on Fox television stations and My Network television stations from coast to coast. Another tragic school shooting has happened, this time in South Florida, in Broward County. Happened about 2:30 this afternoon. We now know that the suspect is now in custody, taken into custody not far from that school, less than a mile. The sheriff says he is an 18-year-old who's now at a local hospital being treated for we don't know, and will then be taken for processing. We know multiple people have died. We do not know how many, but we're beginning to get accounts from teachers who were inside the school. One of them, a man named Jim Gard, who was a math teacher. It's about 2:30 in the afternoon. They've had a drill in the morning, and now they're hearing those same noises again. And he tells the Miami Herald, 6 kids ran back into my room, and I locked the door and turned out the lights and had the kids go into the back of the room, he said. And within a minute of this code red,
that's why a lot of people think there's false flags. On 9/11, they were doing the NORAD drill, the elevator thing, and it just so happens they were doing a drill here. You know, there's a lot of stuff with the Vegas shooting that was weird.
There were SWAT teams everywhere with big guns, cops everywhere, and helicopters, and that's a quote. She said the parents trying to reach their children had been unable to make it to the school because the streets were all blocked off. That was at 2:40 this afternoon. It's now just a couple of minutes after 5, and a live witness is with us. Let's listen.
On the 3rd floor, he ran to the staircase, but then everyone kind of paused, and we all started running back. I was being pushed and pulled through the hallway, and we ran to the classroom. And the minute I got into my classroom, I heard gunshots, multiple rounds from I'm not sure what gun. Then we stayed in there for I don't even remember how long, a really long time, and the police came through the hallway to get us. And in the hallway, I saw a big pile of blood, kind of smeared as if they were dragged away. And I saw 2 girls probably dead in the hallway. And then coming down the stairs, there was some more blood. And outside of the building, there was another guy, and I think it was a teacher who was pretty sure was dead outside.
And what did you see, Leah? You said that you were inside, and
I was
the gunshot
inside.
was not just one gunshot.
It was multiple.
How did it sound?
It really loud because it was right outside my door, and my teacher didn't let us out even when the fire alarm did go off, which was lucky because then we could have really gotten hurt, one of our classmates. But I saw basically the same thing as her, and there was just a lot of blood everywhere, and there was bodies kind of just everywhere. It was gross.
You saw a lot of bodies?
Yeah, there was I think there was 4 of them. So.
And your thoughts when you were getting out of there?
Well, I remember my friend crying behind me, and I kept trying to tell her it's going to be okay, we're going to get out. And luckily we did get out, but it was kind of scary, and I didn't want to look at anything. So, yeah, that was my thoughts.
Okay. And your parents are here now, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just sure you're going to give them a big hug.
Yeah. No problem.
2 students, the first telling us of a pile of blood in the hallway, and the police coming to get us on a Wednesday afternoon, Valentine's Day in South Florida. We know very little about what was happening in this kid's mind, an 18-year-old described by the sheriff as a former student who's now in custody and at a hospital.
I didn't think about that.
We have some live pictures in front of that hospital where the authorities are outside guarding the doors. And there it is. It says Parkland, but this is actually in Broward County. It says Broward Health North. And you can see the Parkland police there, Pompano Beach Police. And on WSVN, they're still continuing to cover this across South Florida as we wait to learn. She said, I thought I saw 4 bodies in there, one teacher who appeared to be a victim. And now WSVN with a witness. Let's listen.
I mean, closest to the highway.
Teacher sacrificed
They pulled the fire alarm and they went on the intercom and they told everybody to evacuate. And when we were down by the portables, we finally got word from the students as rumors, and we walked all the way across from the canal, and we ended up right over there.
I heard a lot of gunshots, and then right after, when the police let us out, there was dead bodies everywhere. There was 2 there, and then when I kept walking down, there was more. It was just scary.
We were just in class waiting to do notes and talking about a project, and the fire alarm.
From our vantage point here at the Winter Olympics, and we'll come back on the air as development.
All right.
Times that we've seen shootings. It is perhaps unusual in this case that the suspect has been located alive, and that there was, as far as the sheriff said, no confrontation at the scene of that apprehension.
Yeah, I'd say that is not been the norm.
No.
Very often,
Usually go suicide by cop,
probably 30% or more, 30-40% of the time, these active shooter incidents, whether it is a citizen involvement or citizen and then law enforcement confrontation with the subject, there will be a subject suicide or rounds exchanged and the subject ends up dead. So that seems to almost be the norm. Here, where the subject, we don't know yet whether he tried to blend in with fleeing students, which could have certainly been the case.
Just joining the
throw down
stream,
his weapon somewhere, try to look like he is part of the exodus of people fleeing the scene, and blend in and make his way home or to some other location. It's going to take some time, but we do tend to see a lot of that subject suicide or subject fatally injured by gunfire. Recall the Sutherland Springs, Texas church shooting, where it was a neighbor that started to pour gunfire at that subject, and there was later I think a suicide out in a field as law enforcement started to close in. So that's a little bit unusual, and certainly law enforcement, I mean, this is an opportunity after all of this horrific violence. It is an opportunity for law enforcement to have a greater understanding, have a conversation with him, see what he has to say, what motivated him, in a way that is uncommon for these incidents.
Ron, you talked earlier about how the police response has changed following previous mass shootings, and that is they become more aggressive. They try to hunt down or find the shooter, whether that shooter is on the scene of a school or has gone somewhere else, to try to prevent any further tragedy. But how have schools themselves changed their posture when it comes to security in the last 10 to 20 years?
Well, I think that schools learn from Columbine as well. We now see much more commonly more rigorous check-in procedures, very often behind double doors, very often behind doors that are, or 2 sets of doors that are locking, so that you cannot just walk into an open school and wander through there. We have schools across the country that are looking at and evaluating not only active shooter protocols, which include lockdown protocols, but looking at alarms and alert systems that will warn the staff that there is a threat of an active shooter, whether that threat is in the school already or is in a nearby neighborhood because of an alert by police, so that we see an increasing frequency where schools are locked down. And I think it is certainly valuable that not only are schools alert to this as a reality across the country, but they're taking steps to defend against it. And that certainly means practice. When I was young, elementary age, I certainly remember the periodic fire alarms, fire drills that we had, where we would stand up and march out in an orderly fashion, and I'm sure somebody was counting how long it took us to get out there into the playground. This is a different world. So you have the fire alerts, but you also have these sorts of alerts, and if practiced well, it could well be that their prior planning and practice saved lives today. That is certainly the hope. That's the expectation of parents, is that the school is ready for this sort of eventuality coming to them.
And in this particular case, we heard from at least one student who mentioned that one of these drills or practice sessions for what they refer to as a code red at this school had just taken place just within the past few weeks. And so there were some students, as we've heard, who assumed that at the moment that this happened, that this may have just been another drill. And as we, of course, know by now, that that is not the case, unfortunately. Ron, as you stay with us here, we had some videotape earlier of some students who had just left the school who were talking about what they had seen inside, and I don't know if we still have that available.
We thought it was a drill. We actually had a fire drill this morning, so it was very weird to witness that, oh, another one's going off. Like, very creepy. Like, why is another one going off? And then all of a sudden we hear one of our student government teachers say, "Run as fast as you can," and we hear a gunshot.
Okay, so there you go. This student saying how there was just some sort of drill just this morning, followed by then what many of these students heard this afternoon, which is that loud gunfire, and then many tried to clear out as quickly as they could. It was, you can only imagine what the situation was like for those students and the teachers then as they try to process exactly what to do in those moments, and which is why those drills and those rehearsals are so important, so they can try to keep themselves safe. We have been watching these images all afternoon for the better part of now about 2 hours and 40 minutes, and that is both paramedics trying to treat the wounded on the scene and also students running as fast as they could to get out of that school. Our understanding, the latest numbers that we've heard from Broward County Sheriff are that 14 have been taken, at least 14 have been transported to local hospitals and were injured, and that there are numerous fatalities on the site. And Jeff Piguet is also in Washington, as we saw what appears to be the suspect taken into a patrol car, but then taken out and put on a stretcher.
Well, that's right, and that struck us as unusual in a situation like this. I mean, unfortunately, there have been so many of these that you see these patterns developing, not only leading up to shootings like this, but also in the aftermath of them. And frankly, in a lot of these cases, the shooters don't survive, and typically they're found on the school grounds. And so what stands out to me is that this suspect was taken into custody, apparently, according to the sheriff, the next town over. And then, as you can see from this video, he was put in the police cruiser, but then shortly taken out and transported to the hospital.
Jeff Piguet is for us in our D.C. Bureau as we continue following again, the images that you just saw there of the student that we talked about being put in the patrol car was from earlier. He was then, as Jeff mentioned, taken to the hospital. To recap, at this hour, the Broward County Sheriff tells us there are multiple deaths in a shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. 14 have been taken to hospitals. A suspect is in custody. We're going to have much more about this still developing story on your local news on this CBS station tonight, also on our 24-hour streaming news service, CBSN, and of course right here tonight on the CBS Evening News. Until then, I'm Jeff Glor, CBS News in New York.
For news 24 hours a day, go to cbsnews.com.
Sorry about that, guys. I was hooking some stuff up. Let's see if any other strange anything going on. If not, we'll end it. I don't know why they would just go silent.
Yes. And name of Jesus.
Pai, em o nome de
In 2018, Marshall County High School, just 3 weeks ago in Kentucky. And today, Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Broward County, Florida, in the town of Parkland, where many students and teachers and administrators have died today. We do not yet know how many. The 25th fatal
I took
school
all the big
shooting
subs out of my room, and now all I have is an Onkyo 12 baseband, Pioneer 10s, and an 8-inch baseband.
That school, again, it's less than half a mile. They have this area all closed off. As soon as the shooting happened, they closed this road. They closed the other road leading to the other side of this complex, not allowing anyone inside. But, you know, there are many parents out there who still have not heard from their child, and those parents are trying to figure out if their child is on that list. And many people calling and texting and asking, have you heard if my daughter is okay? Have you heard if my son is okay? We're getting many of those phone calls out here. We just don't know. It's too soon. We don't have any victims' names as of yet. We do know many people were transported, but again, these are just parents trying to pick up their West Glades Middle School students out here on this road, Holmberg Road. They were stuck across the street and they were not allowed to come, but now they've opened up.
Seems like it happened right when school's getting out.
Here. You can see them on the phones. There were so many people out here using
Just
their
imagine
cell
being a
phones
parent
that
hearing about this and not knowing if your kid
so
was
many
one of them.
parents could not get in touch with their child for several hours. They were not
See our
allowing.
temperature down here?
They couldn't get through. So these parents now finally in touch with their child, and they're now being allowed to go grab their child. But again, just as this scene
if someone killed my kid and they live, I'm sorry, but I'm going to prison for the rest of my life.
Gunshots rang out. This is now
I'm
the
going to
very
torture them slowly, guarantee
aftermath.
that.
The chaos is now turning into a very raw
I don't even have a
reality
kid, but
for these people as they start to understand the gravity of this situation, what has actually happened here in Parkland. We do know several people, multiple fatalities, according to Superintendent Robert Runcie out here. A horrific scene at this school for parents, thousands of parents and family members, people trying to figure out where their loved ones are and were, and still many people who have not spoken to their child are still in the middle of this hell, trying to find their daughter or son who may still be inside that school and at this point may not be coming out alive.
Not
so
related
very
to
sad
this.
scene
I
out
don't
here.
live
Back
close
to you
to
guys
this
on the
place.
desk.
I grew up there.
Well, yes, our hearts go out to those parents who maybe have not heard from their children.
You know what's messed up is we'll hear about this on the news for like 5 days,
then
it will just
being allowed to
disappear.
actually walk to West Glades Middle School, which was also put on immediate lockdown when the shooting broke out. And of course, to the right is an aerial picture of the situation still going on at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School there in Parkland, where parents are being reunited with their children. This is a story that's made headlines since it happened, 2:35 all around the country. Sheriff Scott Israel said that he has spoken to Governor Scott, and Governor Scott is on his way to South Florida. He said he also has spoken to President Trump.
We're also getting some reaction to this from congressional lawmakers and others
Let's bring Jeff Lennox into the conversation. He is that. He's at the Satellite Center for us. Jeff?
Yeah, Craig Lynn, like you mentioned, from our national leaders on down to state and local, we have a lot of reaction coming in as our leaders assess this ongoing situation, this school shooting in Parkland. Again, like you mentioned, President Donald Trump, tweeting out his sympathies to the victims and their families. We know Governor Rick Scott is
one
on his way
good
to
step
South
to
Florida.
fix this would be to not allow private
A few
sales.
moments ago that he has been briefed by Broward
I
County Sheriff
bought a lot
Scott
of
Israel.
guns I
And
have
again, now we are getting some
privately.
on-camera sound from Senator Bill Nelson.
Another
in
thing would be to
Washington,
make everybody
talking about this
have a
situation.
concealed
He has
weapons
also been
permit.
briefed
Not even
on the very
concealed,
latest,
a permit
developments
to
coming out of
carry a gun
Parkland.
of
Here's
any
what he has had to
sort.
say.
This is a bad day for Florida and
It's a
for
very,
the country.
very, very hard
and
problem
you can
to solve.
imagine the grief of parents right now not knowing, as well as the students not knowing.
That was
Because you know, across the people's minds, you know, when you're a kid, if you get bullied,
condolences to the families
you
and
just
victims of
want
the
to
terrible
do
Florida
whatever you
shooting.
can
No
to
child,
get
teacher, or
back at
anyone
them.
else should ever feel unsafe in an American school. It's our understanding that
Not
the
saying
FBI
that's what
is
this was
working in
about.
connection
Like I said
with the
earlier, it could
local
be over
authorities,
a
the Broward
girlfriend that
Sheriff's
got
Office, the
taken.
Parkland
It could have
Police,
been over
and the
anything. A
Coral Springs
teacher,
Police.
a
These are
teacher
some of the
was one
first
of the
pictures that were
victims or
coming. Well,
saying.
actually, this is the suspect being taken into custody
Where's the
just
suspect? Let me
about
see.
an hour and a half or so
This is
after
just
all of this began.
looks like a white male.
I'm sure
about
many of you, if you're following this on
17,
social media or beyond, are seeing the
little
name
heavy,
of
not
this
slim.
suspect. But it's our policy not to release that sort of thing until the authorities release it to us. The reason for that is sometimes a person of interest, a suspect, turns out to be something else entirely. It happens. And so we'll wait for authorities. While WSVN has a reporter on scene at the hospital with an update there, let's listen in.
With more on where the suspect was apprehended a short time ago. Franklin?
Yeah, this right here is the Wyndham Lakes area, and the suspect was captured beyond these houses right here on the backside of those houses down there. Police, people who saw it all are, as you can imagine, shaken up. Now, the suspect was taken and arrested to North Broward. Let me show you some video of cell phone video from a viewer who saw the arrest firsthand. And now he, of course, pulled up to it as it was happening. He caught the video of the suspect being arrested and taken to the ground, the suspect in that maroon shirt. He's telling me the person who shot that video, of course, you can
Anybody
imagine,
has any questions for me, post them in the chat room.
They're
I'll get
wondering
them.
is, why was that person, that suspect, here in this community? Does he live here? Does he know somebody here? Why was he here? So that's the big question.
All right,
they're
let's see
all
what we
wondering.
got in there.
And, you know, they're now, it's a
Oh, you thought
that
the
he's
same
arrested.
thing
Of
about
course,
the
people here
Valentine's
happy
Day
that
massacre,
he's
huh?
gone. If you live near the Wyndham
Not
Lakes
the
area,
Valentine's Day massacre.
you cannot access this community. You cannot come in at all. You can leave, but you can't
Yeah, no
come
problem.
back in. There's no
As long as
traffic
there's people
surrounding
watching,
this
and you know,
entire
at
area.
least
And again, that
3 or 4, I'll
arrested,
keep going for a
hours
little
ago.
bit.
He left, apparently,
By the way, hit
when he
that
left the
subscribe
school,
button. I'm trying to
he
get to
came here,
1,000
he was
subscribers.
tackled
I'm
by
so
police.
close.
Residents who live in this Wyndham Lakes area saw it firsthand, caught that cell phone video. Let's take you to the person who caught that video and get his reaction. Take a listen.
That's scary. That's scary. I mean, definitely, the fact that having a shooting on a community like this one, it is just shocking. Now, when it comes to just being so close to your house, it's like you never really know where and what's going to happen. We went around 10, holding them down, and more coming over. They were jumping out of the vehicles, making sure that the guy was down, and of course it was congratulations everyone there for that they did. They were shaking hands, etc. But there was no any hitting to the guy in the ground. There was no abuse given to the guy. I mean, nothing of that happened. The guy was just scuffed. There was face there, as the video shows.
Again, you're hearing him say that police seem to be congratulating each other, happy they caught that suspect. He says it didn't appear that the suspect was hurt, and it didn't appear that he tried to resist police. Again, that suspect arrested here in the Wyndham Lakes area in Coral Springs. Again, didn't seem to be hurt, but he was taken to Broward North in an ambulance. Residents who, of course, as you can imagine, not believing that this is where that person was arrested. We'll try to get you more sound and more reaction from folks who live here. For now, that's it live in Coral Springs. Franklin White.
And thanks to you and the rest of the team there, Craig Stevens and Lynn Martinez, Ralph Rayburn up in the chopper, and all the rest, and we'll get back to them. I want to get to our own Phil Keating, who's based
If
in
anybody
South
else
Florida and is
watching
now live with us
has
on
any
scene in
comments or
Parkland.
anything
Phil,
you'd
to
like
you.
to say about it, just post it in the chat room.
Hi, Shepard. We are just about a half-mile south of the high school right now, and as you have mentioned throughout the coverage of the past 3 hours, the law enforcement community, led by the Broward County Sheriff's Department, really responded rapidly and had this person of interest, suspect, matching the description of the black hat, the burgundy shirt, and the black pants in custody, roughly a mile and a half away from the school, which we believe is where he had been living. According to the school superintendent of Broward County and the sheriff, this was not a current student, but an 18-year-old. And the governor, Rick Scott, is on his way from Tallahassee down here. He has spoken and remained in contact with law enforcement down here. He has already expressed his grief for the families of those affected. We still don't know exactly the full number of injured and fatalities. However, the Broward County Superintendent, Robert Runcie, did say that there are numerous fatalities on a horrible, horrible day. And just moments ago, the Broward County Sheriff, Scott Israel, said that this is an absolutely, quote, catastrophic day. Not anything really can be worse than this. Where we are right now, this is the Sawgrass Expressway above us. This is a major expressway that wraps around the western side of the Broward County metro area. Just behind me, roughly half a mile, is the high school proper. This is as far north as anybody can go here on Coral Springs Way. So right now, all around the school in all of these areas, and of course it is rush hour, which is on a daily basis horrendous in Miami-Dade and Broward counties. People are stuck. Parents were at a nearby elementary school as well as a hotel trying to rendezvous with their students, their kids, their boys and girls. You saw the scenes of the kids running from the school as law enforcement released groups of 8, groups of 20, all of them running with their backpacks on, hands up, sprinting really, in terror and with the aim of getting to safety, all of which was totally reminiscent from the Columbine High School massacre back in the 90s, which, Shepard, both you and I were there and covered that as well. And one of the worst parts of the school shootings is for the parents responding panicked, looking for their loved ones, their sons and daughters, trying to find them. And in those minutes, those long minutes, sometimes hours of not being able to find their son or daughter, it is truly a parent's absolute worst nightmare. So law enforcement is all over this area. Traffic at a standstill, and the governor's on his way down here. We are expecting at some point the sheriff of Broward County to soon get in front of the cameras. But this has been a very rapid investigation. According to the sheriff, like I mentioned, 18-year-old, not a student currently, certainly could have been a former student. There had been some students who mentioned that they knew who they thought he was, but he matched the description, and the investigation continues here on a horrible day in Broward County school history. Shep.
Phil Keating, our South Florida-based correspondent, who's live there for us on scene this afternoon, and live pictures coming from first above the school, and now certainly from the centers all around as parents work to find their kids. For those of you watching on local Fox stations or My Network television stations across America, we're going to return you to your local program, in some cases your local news.
We're going back
Our
to
coverage
local.
will continue on Fox News Channel, on
Let's
satellite and cable
here.
for the...
Yeah.
Which I will also be reading.
Okay. Okay. I'll tell you, that eagle that lives near me,
weapon, perhaps,
there's
because
an eagle nest, and I think it's more views than
Ari asked
anything.
one of the students, and I believe Laura did as well. One of them said that they heard 2 shots. Another one said that they heard upwards of 10 shots. But you know, forgive me for my lack of experience with guns, but I'm not sure. That doesn't seem to be...
Normally, a handgun like that, a weapon like that,
an
you're
automatic,
talking in a magazine
10 shots
anywhere
can
on
actually be about
low end from 7
60
rounds, 7 bullets, up to the high end of 13. If there's an extender that's placed on the weapon, you can have at most like 15 rounds in a clip. That's the other end of it. But he could easily disengage that clip and engage another one. So if he's only got, let's say in the middle, 9 rounds, that's, you know, 18 rounds as we continue to go forward, 27.
I got a 9mm right here with a 30 round clip.
So you can do a lot of damage with a, quote, handgun with that kind of
30
magazine.
rounds.
A lot of information that we're getting here into the NBC6 newsroom. Let's get the very latest with Keith and Trina now.
All right, coming up on the 5:31 hour right now. This all began about 2:19 today when a fire alarm was pulled at Stoneman Douglas High School, which was bizarre to the students because they just had a fire drill earlier in the morning. 2:19, that fire alarm is pulled. Shots are fired. A number of people are hit. We're hearing anywhere from 14 to 18 victims, several casualties. This according to the sheriff, saying that he wouldn't give a specific number, but there are several casualties here. And Robert Runcie, the superintendent, also said an administrator and a teacher were among those that he was referring to as dead.
And we want to let you know the shooter, we've known for some time who this person was, but we could not reveal it. He's been identified as 18-year-old Nicholas Cruz. And again, at some point, he was a student at that school. We don't believe he was a student currently. Maybe he was in an alternative school, but possibly had a relative at that school. He is the person that they believe, Nicholas Cruz, 18 years old, pulled the trigger of a gun again and again and again, and hit multiple other students in the school, injuring some and killing some. We do not know the number on the dead, but we are told it is multiple, according to Sheriff Scott Israel.
And as well as Superintendent Robert Runcie, there were several casualties here. So after the shooting takes place, Cruz leaves, heads west towards a neighborhood where he was just walking along trying to mix in with other students. And it was about an hour after the shooting, or after that fire alarm was pulled, I would say, is when sheriff's deputies were able to take him into custody.
Let's listen into some sound from Sheriff Scott Israel from earlier, talking about the arrest and what they know right now.
This is a catastrophic, an unbelievably catastrophic day in Broward County history. It's devastating. I'm sick to my stomach. We have multiple casualties. We've had approximately 14 people transported to area hospitals with varying degrees of injuries. There are multiple casualties, though. There are folks that have lost their lives. I don't know the number right now. It's a fluid scene right now. We have multiple SWAT teams clearing all the buildings. If anybody knows anything about Stoneman Douglas High School, it's one of the biggest schools in Broward County. It's huge. It's a huge campus. So we have multiple SWAT teams clearing every building to make sure that there are no other shooters.
All right, you've been listening to sound from Sheriff Scott Israel recounting what happened this afternoon that at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, at 5901 Pine Island Road, there was a mass shooting. That shooting took the lives of at least one person, maybe many more, because we were told by the sheriff that there were multiple fatalities and that there are multiple injuries, as many as 14 people rushed to the hospital, including the shooter, who is at the same hospital at Broward Health North, which is in Coral Springs, maybe about 10 minutes away from where the actual shooting and mayhem had. Sent kids scurrying at two schools. Right now,
he was probably unarmed when he surrendered.
The very latest on what he knows about what's happening.
But you can still say, hey, you know, after what he did, I thought you would
Trina, right now we're at the scene as we speak. I just pulled up literally shortly, probably about 3 minutes ago. Now, we're going to try to focus in. We just got here and got set up just so we can bring you this report from our vantage point and exactly where we're at. Now, we're at a staging location. Take a look here right beside me. You'll see just how many emergency vehicles are on the scene. This gives you an idea of just how active it is here. This is a very active scene. This street is shut down. And if you take a look here right behind me, Shane, pan on over. If you take a look behind me, you see SWAT, law enforcement still on the scene, of course, still making sure the area is secure. Behind that, you see several emergency vehicles, but what you cannot probably see, because that vehicle is blocking the way, are several parents waiting underneath the bridge here, waiting for some answers as to their loved ones, as to the status of their children, maybe that they have not heard from. Many of them sitting under the bridge, just anxiously waiting to get answers. Some of them down and about, just wanting some sort of answer as to what exactly is happening, what is going on. As we've heard from the Broward superintendent, as well as Sheriff Scott Israel, is that there are a number of fatalities inside. So if you can imagine, as a parent, not hearing from your loved one, That would be very nerve-wracking.
Sorry for all the noise, guys. I'll just mute my mic and just put something on there.
When you hear that there are a number of different fatalities inside. Okay, right now I believe we're going to go to NBC6 reporter Jamie Garola with more. Jamie.
Yeah, hi guys. I just want to give you guys an update here. We're at Broward General North, where several victims we believe were brought here, but also the suspect is here. You can see this ambulance bay here is where some of the victims were brought in, and right here is where the suspect was brought in through a completely separate entrance. We've just noticed some new police activity out here on the scene. We see some sheriff's deputies with motorcycles who will likely be an escort once they decide to go ahead and take the suspect out of the hospital here. We expect him possibly, based on the activity that we've seen out here, to come from this door right here. Also, security is kicking me back because it appears as though pretty soon there will be some movement in this area. Again, the suspect was brought here probably about an hour ago. It's unclear, though, what extent of injuries that he may have from this horror ordeal. But of course, we've got to worry about the injuries inflicted on the victims who are also here. Public information officer from the Broward Sheriff's Office, actually, she just came out. She's working on getting us the latest numbers, but we do know that victims were brought here to Broward General North and also Broward General, and we expect the suspect to be removed from here at any time. We'll keep this shot up, and of course, when it happens, we'll break back in.
Okay, Jamie Garola there with the latest from the hospital where some of the victims and the suspect was also transported. We're looking at pictures as well of some of the parents as they are reunited with their children. You could only imagine how frightening it must be for a parent to get that call that there is a shooter in your child's school and not to be able to communicate with that child. The Sheriff, Scott Israel, said that they are trying to get the information disseminated to some of those parents as fast as possible. There is a staging area at Marriott Heron Bay where some of those parents are being reunited, but the high school is still on lockdown, Keith, and that's important to note because many of these kids are still there. Some of them are still hiding because Willard Shepard spoke to one individual that was hiding in a closet, and it's important to note that some of them have been released as soon as officials are in there and they can say definitively that it is safe. They will clear the area, but we've seen groups of students with their hands up as they are released from the school.
And what's happening right now at the high school that has not been cleared, the portion of the school that's not been cleared, is you have tactical teams that are going door to door, room to room, literally closet to closet to make sure that it is indeed clear and safe to remove the rest of the students. That's why we are still on lockdown. Although West Glade Middle School, that was taken off of lockdown, and I guess complementing that bit of news, we have the advantage of seeing some other helicopter shots here when we're on air, and I've seen SWAT teams, tactical teams, just walking back to their tactical truck. It looked like they were done for the day. And
it is a huge undertaking because this is such a large school with close to 3,000 students by all accounts. It is just humongous, and in order to make that school secure, it's going to take a while. Jawan is live on the scene. Jawan, we've been seeing some of the parents, some of the students emotional because of the experience that they've endured this afternoon. Have you seen some of that emotion as well?
I see a lot of fear. I see a lot of panic from parents that are running around trying to get answers and to find out exactly what is going on with their student, their child that they have not heard from. Because I didn't want to walk away from the camera, I noticed a few parents. I wanted to go to try to catch them, but I'm sure that they have more important business to tend to. But they were very frantic, running with their cell phones in hand, trying to get answers. And take a look behind me just to give you an idea of what's going on. You see a lot of parents, maybe neighbors showing up to the scene. Now, beyond the fire truck there, Shane will zoom in, you can see that it is a very active scene. There is a number of parents right there underneath the bridge. We are not allowed to go past a certain vantage point, but of course, understandably, you see a number of parents, though, over there walking around just waiting to get answers as to what is happening inside, how they can't get in contact with their child. Jackie, as we've said, you even said it just a moment ago, the nerves of being a parent, not being able to get in contact with your child after hearing that there is a shooting inside the school is very, very nerve-wracking, very scary until you get in contact with that child. And we've heard from some of the parents a little bit earlier that said, thankfully, their children, that they're okay. But then there's some that aren't. We heard from the sheriff who said just moments ago in that press conference, that brief one, that there are multiple fatalities inside. And that is basically what a lot of people here on the scene, that's what they're dealing with. That is the fear that they are living with. And you heard from Scott Israel, who was talking about that this is a sad day for not only the city, but also the county as far as the state of Florida. And this is catastrophic. As the superintendent Runcie put it, this is a catastrophic incident that has happened here today. So again, we're going to take a look here at the scene. It's just still very, very active here behind me. You see SWAT, you see BSO on the scene, you see fire rescue on the scene, and then you see a number of concerned parents, friends over by the bridge, underneath that bridge, because they are waiting for answers. They're waiting to find out more. But again, we're going to continue our team coverage right now. NBC6 reporter Jamie Garola joins us now with more on what's going on from his vantage point. Jamie.
Yeah, hi guys. We do see they are bringing somebody out in custody here from the hospital. You can see all of those Broward Sheriff's deputies and law enforcement surrounding that man. I'm not sure if you can see it from this vantage point. He's pretty tall from what I can tell. Actually, that may not be the right person that I'm seeing, but they definitely walked somebody out here trying to get a better vantage point of this suspect. We will definitely see, you see a patrol car getting ready to leave. We'll definitely see him getting into one of these vehicles here. You can see all the officers are probably trying to figure out the best, most strategic way to get him out of here. Get our bearings here. So we did see them walk out with somebody. I'm not sure if that person got into the vehicle because they blocked the deputy car with that black SUV. You can see now. You know what? We're going to try and move up here.
Ruins machines. I changed filters, clean the whole tank, still consistent.
All right. So we do see some movement. I'm going to back up. See if we can get a shot of him coming. Also, I'm not sure if I lost IFB, so if somebody can speak to me really quick. Okay, all right. So the suspect was brought here about an hour or so ago. He was brought into a separate entrance over there. I believe that is the vehicle that I'm trying to zoom in. That's as much as my iPhone will go there. Into that deputy car that you see that is surrounded by law enforcement. And then this vehicle right here appears to be the escort vehicle. We were told that he did not, initially, he was taken without incident. So we're trying to get clarification as to why it is that he was actually brought to the hospital, probably just as a matter of standard operating procedure. And now we can see some movement taking place right now. You can see a very heavy law enforcement presence. Just like that, the suspect is now being taken away with heavy escort from law enforcement. You know, I believe it was the marked sheriff's deputy vehicle, but I could be wrong because my view was slightly obscured. Also, there is a chopper in the air, so you can tell law enforcement here is taking this extremely seriously. They don't want any sort of complications or mix-up with a man that they believe is extremely dangerous, and the man they say went ahead on this shooting rampage at this school in Parkland, injuring at least 14, even causing some fatalities. So they are not taking any chances, but the cops cops have already left. We believe that the suspect was transported from the hospital. He was here maybe about an hour or so ago. He was brought into that separate entrance that's compared to where the victims were brought into that ambulance bay right over there. But as far as we can tell at this moment, the suspect has left with a heavy police escort, where no doubt he will likely be questioned by investigators, trying to figure out what prompted him to do this. What were his what were his motives to commit the murder and go into this school and just open fire? And of course, we're going to continue to dig into figuring out exactly who this suspect is and what his role is in all of this. Reporting from Broward North, Jamie Garola, NBC6 News.
All right, guys, I got a lot of work to do. Keep an eye on this story. Go to Facebook. Go to your home page, and on the side, extend it. Go to a Facebook Live video, and you'll see plenty of this. I've got a lot of work to do. Thank you guys for tuning in. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Really trying to get to 1,000